there for us. And Sophie, these remarkable pictures we saw of the Countess particularly shaking people's hands in the crowd to thank them for being there.
Absolutely. They really did take the time to meet and greet with the people of Manchester who'd come out to see them. They have actually just driven away just a few moments ago at the end of their visit from Manchester here today. Now, their first part of the visit was at the Central Library.
For years, Sophie kept her distance from the endless royal drama, choosing silence while headlines swirled around Meghan Markle and the growing tensions inside the monarchy. But now, that silence has finally been shattered, and what she reportedly revealed is sending shockwaves through royal watchers everywhere. Behind the polished smiles and carefully staged appearances, insiders claim deep cracks have been forming for far longer than the public realized. So, what exactly pushed Sophie to finally speak out? And could her words expose a side of Meghan the Palace desperately hoped would remain hidden? And what do you think Sophie said about Meghan? What could be so ecstatic about it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. Sophie's silent message to Meghan. For many years, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, built a reputation as the royal who never added fuel to the fire. While the British monarchy struggled through scandals, family tensions, shocking interviews, and non-stop media pressure, Sophie stayed firmly in the background. She carried herself with calmness, dignity, and discipline. Unlike others who constantly found themselves dominating front pages and television debates, Sophie quietly focused on her duties without seeking attention or sympathy. That quiet image, however, is beginning to shift in a way that has captured enormous public curiosity. Over the last few years, a flood of royal documentaries, insider stories, biographies, and carefully observed public appearances have slowly pushed Sophie into the middle of one of the monarchy's most talked-about dramas, the complicated and increasingly tense relationship surrounding Meghan Markle. What makes the situation especially fascinating is that Sophie has still not spoken publicly in anger. There has been no explosive interview, no dramatic public statement, and no direct attack. Yet many royal watchers believe her feelings are becoming impossible to ignore. Instead of loud confrontations, the story is unfolding through quiet moments that speak volumes, uncomfortable silences during public events, subtle royal decisions, old stories resurfacing, and growing comparisons between Sophie's loyal approach to royal life and Meghan's very different experience within the institution. These small details have created an atmosphere filled with tension, mystery, and unanswered questions. For years, many people believed Sophie would remain completely neutral no matter what happened inside palace walls. She was often described as the monarchy's safe pair of hands, a dependable and trusted figure who earned the deep respect of Queen Elizabeth II. Unlike more controversial royals, Sophie was seen as steady, reliable, and deeply committed to protecting the image of the crown. But as more insider accounts continue to emerge, a different picture is beginning to form. Behind her calm public image, there are growing suggestions that Sophie may have quietly carried deep disappointment and emotional wounds over how certain royal events unfolded, especially during the turbulent years surrounding Meghan and Prince Harry's departure from royal life. Now, after spending decades avoiding the spotlight, Sophie appears to be communicating more than ever without saying very much at all. Every public appearance, every carefully measured expression, and every silent moment is being studied for hidden meaning. In many ways, the monarchy's quietest royal may suddenly be delivering one of the loudest messages, not through shouting, but through silence itself. Was anyone there to guide Meghan Markle in the palace? Did she get the required tutelage? Let's delve into the details of the guidance Meghan refused to acknowledge. Sophie's failed Meghan outreach. Long before the royal tensions became public and the world started watching every move of the royal family, there were already quiet attempts to build bridges behind the scenes. One of the most surprising efforts, as revealed in the Channel 5 documentary Royal Peacemaker, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, reportedly came from Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, who tried to support Meghan Markle as she prepared to enter royal life. According to royal commentators and people close to the situation featured in the documentary, Sophie made a warm and personal effort to reach out to Meghan during the early days of her engagement to Prince Harry. She understood very well how confusing and intense royal life could feel for someone coming in from the outside. This was not just theory for her, it was something she had lived through herself. When Sophie married Prince Edward in 1999, she stepped into a world that was very different from anything she had known before. The royal environment came with strict rules, constant expectations, and a level of public attention that could feel overwhelming. Every action was watched, every word could be repeated, and even private struggles often became public stories. Sophie faced her share of mistakes in the public eye and went through painful media criticism that at times felt harsh and unfair. However, instead of letting it define her, she slowly learned, adapted, and rebuilt her confidence and reputation over time. Through patience and resilience, she eventually became one of the most steady and trusted members of the royal family. Because of that journey, by the time Meghan arrived, Sophie was seen as someone who truly understood the challenges of being an outsider stepping into the firm. She was, in many ways, in a unique position to guide and support her. Reports suggest that Sophie went out of her way to help Meghan settle in. She allegedly spent long conversations with her, answering questions, explaining royal expectations, and offering practical advice on how to manage pressure, media attention, and the complex social rules within the monarchy. Her intention, according to insiders, was simple but sincere: to help Meghan avoid some of the painful mistakes she herself had once experienced. However, what followed surprised many within royal circles. After those early conversations, Meghan reportedly did not continue the connection. There were said to be no follow-up calls, no deepening exchanges, and no developing friendship between them. From Sophie's perspective, the silence was unexpected and quietly disappointing. Within the carefully connected world of royal relationships, where communication and trust are highly valued, this lack of follow-through was seen by some insiders as more than casual distance. It was interpreted by a few as a missed opportunity for connection, and perhaps even a subtle sign of disconnect between Meghan and parts of the institution. The documentary gently frames this moment as an early and quiet turning point, one that hinted at a widening gap that would, over time, become part of a much larger and more public royal divide. Was Meghan the only one who chose to refuse mentorship? How did Kate acclimatize herself into the royal family? Let's dive into the details of how Kate accepted guidance, and Meghan chose another path. Sophie's guidance, Meghan's distance. The documentary highlights a striking contrast between Meghan Markle and Catherine, Princess of Wales. According to royal experts featured in the program, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, is described as an important source of support for Kate during her early years inside the royal family. Their connection reportedly grew slowly but in a natural way, eventually becoming one of the strongest quiet alliances within Buckingham Palace. Over time, the public has seen small glimpses of this bond, such as Sophie standing close to Kate during difficult royal events, offering calm reassurance, sharing quiet smiles in tense moments, and showing clear trust between them. Royal correspondent Victoria Murphy once described Sophie as a natural mentor for Kate. Many observers believe Kate's willingness to listen, learn, and adapt helped her become one of the monarchy's most respected modern figures. Some parts of the documentary describe this influence as the Sophie effect, suggesting that Sophie's guidance helped shape Kate into a calm, polished, and steady future queen figure. Then the focus shifts back to Meghan Markle. The tone changes noticeably, becoming more serious and reflective. The documentary suggests that Meghan did not fully embrace the same support system within the royal household. Instead of building deeper connections inside the institution, she appeared to move more independently, gradually creating distance from palace structures. This contrast becomes the emotional center of the entire story. Two women entered royal life from outside the traditional system. One accepted guidance and grew into a central and stable figure within the monarchy. The other rejected much of the structure and eventually chose to step away completely. According to the documentary, Sophie never forgot this difference in approach. It is presented as something that shaped how she viewed both journeys over time. The story suggests that Sophie's quiet role inside the royal family was never about control or pressure, but rather about steady presence and simple guidance when needed. In contrast, Meghan's journey is described as more fast-moving and more challenging, with fewer close personal ties forming within the palace environment. The documentary presents this difference not as simple criticism, but as a study of two very different ways of adjusting to royal life. It focuses on how support, trust, and adaptation can shape outcomes within such a demanding institution. Ultimately, the narrative uses these two paths to show how different choices about relationships and guidance can lead to very different public and personal results within the royal system. It also highlights the importance of mentorship in shaping confidence and stability in high-pressure environments, suggesting that quiet support can sometimes be just as powerful as public leadership. In this way, Sophie's influence is portrayed as subtle but lasting within the evolving story of the modern monarchy and its relationships over time within royal family dynamics and public perception today overall. How did Sophie's react to the Oprah interview? Did she sound disappointed, or was she expecting it? Let's dig into the details of the 8 words that shocked royal watchers. Sophie's dismissive royal reaction moment. If Sophie's early disappointment with Meghan had quietly stayed out of public view for a long time, everything changed after one explosive television moment that followed the Oprah interview in 2021. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sat down with Oprah Winfrey, the conversation quickly turned into a global storm. Watched by millions around the world, the interview didn't just create headlines, it shook the foundations of the royal family. Harry and Meghan made a series of serious claims about life inside the monarchy. They spoke about feeling emotionally unsupported, isolated from help, and struggling with mental health pressures. One of the most controversial parts of the interview also included allegations of racism within the royal household, which immediately intensified public debate and media attention. Almost overnight, the British monarchy found itself in full crisis management mode. The institution that is usually careful, controlled, and silent in public controversy suddenly became the center of worldwide discussion. While senior royals chose to respond with restraint and silence, the pressure from the public and the media continued to grow. Then came a moment that stood out sharply from the rest, an unexpected reaction from Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and Prince Edward. During a television appearance shortly after the interview aired, a reporter casually raised the topic of Oprah's interview. Instead of giving a detailed or cautious response, Prince Edward smiled and said lightly, "Oprah, who?" Sophie immediately followed with a laugh and added, "What interview?" Just 2 short lines, only 8 words in total. But those words traveled far beyond the studio. They spread across newspapers, talk shows, and social media, sparking intense debate and strong reactions. To critics of Harry and Meghan, the exchange looked like classic royal discipline, an intentional refusal to engage, escalate, or validate the controversy with public commentary. It suggested calm control, as though the palace was choosing silence over spectacle. However, to supporters of the Sussexes, the moment felt very different. It appeared dismissive, even mocking, as if their deeply emotional interview had been brushed aside too easily. What made the moment even more striking was Sophie's long-standing reputation for caution. She is known within royal circles as someone who rarely speaks carelessly or lets her emotions slip in public. Because of that, many royal observers began to wonder whether the remark was truly spontaneous or carefully aligned with a wider royal strategy. The underlying message, whether intentional or not, seemed clear to many watching closely. The royal family would not be drawn into public arguments, nor would it allow itself to be pulled into a media back and forth with Harry and Meghan. It was a moment that went beyond humor or avoidance. For many observers, it marked a turning point in how Sophie, in particular, was perceived, suggesting that her personal feelings toward Meghan may have been stronger and more defined than the public had ever realized. Was the monarchy pleased with the Oprah interview? What pushed Sophie's reaction into a deeper and more personal frustration? Let's talk about the fury behind the palace smile. Scobie book sparks royal backlash. If the Oprah moment had already stirred debate and divided public opinion, it was Omid Scobie's book Endgame that reportedly pushed Sophie's frustration into something far deeper and more personal. In the book, Scobie strongly criticized the now famous "Oprah, who?" remark made by Sophie and Prince Edward. He suggested that the comment was not only dismissive, but could also be interpreted as insensitive, even describing it as casually bigoted. These words quickly sparked fresh arguments online, with people debating whether the criticism was fair or an unfair attack on the couple's character. The situation became even more heated when Scobie also alleged that Sophie deliberately avoided Meghan during the funeral events for Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. That claim spread quickly and added more fuel to an already emotional and highly public royal conversation. Behind the scenes, reports claimed Sophie was deeply upset. According to royal insiders, the reaction was not just about one book or one accusation. It touched a much older story, one of long effort, patience, and reputation building. Sophie had spent many years slowly reshaping how she was seen by the public. Early in her royal life, she faced controversy and criticism, but over time, she worked hard to rebuild trust. Through consistent charity work, careful public service, and a low-profile approach, she eventually became viewed as one of the most dependable and respected working members of the royal family. So, to see her name placed in a negative light in a globally discussed royal book reportedly felt like a setback she did not deserve. Yet, instead of responding with public statements or entering into media arguments, Sophie chose a very different path. She did not fight loudly. She did not engage in public back and forth. Instead, she responded through action. She increased her workload. She became more present at royal events. She strengthened her involvement in charitable causes and international engagements. Rather than stepping back, she stepped forward into her duties with even more focus and consistency. At the same time, Harry and Meghan continued to expand their public storytelling through interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and memoirs, often shaping global conversations about their experiences within the monarchy. Sophie, on the other hand, took a quieter route, one centered on steady service, diplomacy, and long-term charitable impact. Over time, this contrast became more noticeable. One side remained highly vocal in the public space. The other built its reputation slowly, through consistency rather than commentary. According to insiders, this quiet, disciplined approach became Sophie's strongest response. Instead of defending herself with words, she allowed her work, presence, and dedication to speak for her, turning action into her most powerful form of reply. What did things look like after Sophie was officially granted a royal title with her husband? Could she be occupying a seat meant for Meghan? Let's dig into the details of the new role that came with changes. Sophie, Meghan, royal power shift. When King Charles III officially granted Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, their new Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh titles in 2023, many royal watchers saw the decision as more than a simple ceremonial honor. It felt symbolic and deeply meaningful within the wider story of the modern monarchy. For years, many people had assumed that the historic Edinburgh title would eventually go to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as part of their senior royal future. Instead, after the couple stepped away from royal duties, the title was awarded to Edward and Sophie, who had remained loyal, steady, and committed to royal service. Inside palace circles, the message appeared very clear and direct. Commitment mattered, service mattered, staying mattered. The promotion also elevated Sophie into an even more influential and powerful position within the monarchy. She was no longer just a supportive secondary royal quietly working in the background. She had become one of the institution's most senior figures at a time when the royal family was searching for stability. Reports even suggested that Sophie felt relieved she no longer needed to curtsy to Meghan Markle after receiving her new title. Whether fully accurate or slightly exaggerated, the story added fuel to the growing perception that tensions between the two women were hard to ignore. But Sophie still refused to publicly criticize Meghan directly. That restraint may actually be what makes the situation feel even more intense. Because every public appearance, every interview, and every carefully chosen comment now seems loaded with meaning. And many royal watchers believe Sophie understands exactly what she is doing. Over time, this careful silence has been interpreted in many different ways within royal commentary circles. Some believe it shows wisdom and discipline, while others think it reflects a quiet but firm positioning inside the modern monarchy. Rather than engaging in public arguments, Sophie appears to rely on actions, appearances, and consistency to communicate her place in the royal structure. This approach has made her role feel even more strategic, especially as public attention continues to focus on the relationship between senior royals. For Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the ongoing narrative has often been shaped outside the palace, through media interviews and public appearances. But within the institution, figures like Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, are increasingly viewed as stabilizing forces who quietly reinforce tradition. In that sense, every title, every appearance, and every absence becomes part of a larger story about loyalty, duty, and influence. And as the monarchy continues to evolve under King Charles III, these subtle signals are watched more closely than ever before. Ultimately, the story surrounding Sophie, Edward, Meghan, and Harry reflects a monarchy navigating change, public opinion, and internal dynamics, where silence can speak as loudly as words, and where loyalty is often measured by patience, presence, and long-term commitment to duty. Why is Sophie breaking her silence now, of all times? What could have sparked the zeal in her to speak up? Let's talk about the efforts Sophie had put in place for the sake of Meghan. Sophie's quiet royal peace efforts. Sophie has often been described in reports as one of the few senior royals who tried to support and guide Meghan Markle during her difficult transition into royal life. Many royal commentators say she understood the pressure Meghan faced because she herself had once gone through strong media attention after marrying into the royal family. According to palace-connected sources, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, was seen as someone who tried to stay calm, fair, and diplomatic, especially during rising tension between Meghan Markle and Catherine, Princess of Wales. King Charles III reportedly sees Sophie as trustworthy, balanced, and capable of helping reduce tension within the family because she is known to maintain friendly ties across different parts of the royal household. It is also reported that Sophie, along with other royal family members, allegedly reached out privately to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry during some difficult moments, with hopes of easing conflict and encouraging peace. Although there is no public confirmation that Sophie and Meghan became especially close, royal observers often believe she tried to act more as a peacemaker than an opponent. The relationship is therefore often described as respectful but complicated, shaped by palace pressure, public attention, and the wider divisions that later emerged within the royal family. Overall, the picture painted by these reports is one of quiet effort, where Sophie is seen trying to reduce tension in a family that was under intense public focus. It also highlights how her approach is often described as gentle, avoiding open conflict, and focusing instead on calm communication and understanding. Even though there is no official statement confirming close personal ties between Sophie and Meghan, many royal watchers still view her as one of the quieter figures who tried to keep peace during difficult moments in the monarchy. Taken together, the reports create a narrative of subtle influence rather than public drama, where Sophie's role is often described as working behind the scenes rather than in the spotlight. This perception is reinforced by repeated claims that she prefers calm dialogue, avoids escalation, and maintains respectful relationships across the royal household even when tensions rise. While the full truth of private royal interactions is not publicly known, these accounts continue to shape observers' understanding of Sophie's position within the modern royal story, especially in relation to Meghan Markle and the wider family dynamics. It remains a topic of interest for royal watchers who closely follow developments within the royal family and interpret the small actions, gestures, and relationships that may suggest efforts toward unity, reconciliation, or continued distance among key members. Such interpretations often reflect the public's continuing curiosity about the royal household and the quiet roles individuals like Sophie are believed to play behind the scenes within modern royal life and its ongoing evolving story in the public eye today. Where and how was Sophie's expression captured? What does the subtle revelation imply? Let's take a look at the documentary that said everything without saying it. Sophie's Quiet Royal Rise Explained. The release of Royal Peacemaker in 2026 could easily stand as one of the most important moments in Sophie's journey within the British royal family. Not because Sophie suddenly steps forward with shocking confessions or dramatic revelations, and not because she tries to rewrite history with loud claims. Instead, the impact comes from something far more subtle and powerful. The way the documentary gathers many years of quiet moments, private tensions, and carefully observed events, and weaves them into a single, compelling story. Rather than presenting Sophie as someone who seeks attention, the film paints her as a steady and calming presence within a family often marked by pressure, public scrutiny, and internal strain. It highlights her long-standing closeness to Queen Elizabeth II, showing how she earned trust through consistency, discretion, and loyalty. It also explores her growing role under King Charles, where she is portrayed as someone increasingly relied upon in moments that require stability and calm judgment. Her friendship with Princess Catherine is also emphasized, suggesting a shared understanding of duty, public expectation, and the need to balance tradition with modern life. Across these portrayals, Sophie appears less like a background figure and more like one of the quiet anchors of the institution. At the same time, the documentary draws a clear and repeated contrast with Meghan's journey. Without needing to be aggressive or openly critical, it places both women's paths side by side in a way that naturally invites comparison. Sophie remains within the royal system, working inside its structure, adapting to its rules, and continuing her responsibilities. Meghan, on the other hand, is shown as someone who stepped away from that structure and built a very different life in the public eye, speaking openly about her experiences and challenges from outside palace walls. Sophie's story is framed as one of endurance within the institution. Meghan's is framed as one of independence outside it. Sophie is seen as steady and protective of the system. Meghan is seen as outspoken and willing to challenge it. These differences are not shouted, but they are clearly felt throughout the documentary, creating a quiet tension that shapes how viewers interpret both lives. What makes the documentary especially striking is that it never relies on direct confrontation. Sophie does not need to criticize Meghan openly, and the narrative does not require dramatic accusations. Instead, meaning is built through contrast, timing, and memory. A missed invitation here, a carefully chosen public appearance there, a small shift in royal recognition, or a moment of visible closeness with other senior royals, all these details slowly form a larger picture. Over time, Sophie's actions, or even her restraint, begin to speak for her. A gentle remark in public, a private smile caught on camera, a steady rise in royal responsibilities, and years of consistent service all combine into something far more powerful than any single interview could achieve. In the end, Royal Peacemaker reshapes how Sophie is seen. She is no longer simply the quiet figure standing at the edge of royal life. Instead, she emerges as a central and deeply influential presence, someone whose calm consistency, long-term loyalty, and understated strength have made her one of the most quietly significant figures in the modern royal story. So, what do you think about Meghan's relationship with Sophie? Do you think Meghan deliberately refused Sophie's mentorship? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.